This is the strongest storm in history. It's 100,000 times stronger than the Milton storm. Wind speeds exceeding 500 kilometers per hour. And up to 4 tornadoes forming at once. Its destructive power is like the apocalypse, turning everything it touches. Back to the Stone Age. So how do humans face such a massive storm? What will happen? Evening in Silverton Town. Streetlights flicker mysteriously. And then, the vague silhouette of a tornado appears, causing the group of people parked nearby to panic, planning to flee. But the tornado approached too quickly. Eventually, all 4 people were swept 245 meters into the air, and then fell back down, never to return. Hearing the news, the storm-chasing team led by Peter was disappointed, because it had been a year since they last captured any tornado footage. While feeling disheartened, Anna spotted another tornado forming, and the whole group eagerly set out to chase it. Sure enough, not long after, a huge hailstorm hit, signaling that the storm was forming, so the group rushed towards the looming black clouds. Very quickly, a towering tornado formed. It tore up trees and everything in its path. Meanwhile, a nearby school hosting a graduation ceremony was also impacted by the storm. Rain poured down and the wind blew away chairs and tables. The storm intensified with thunder and lightning. Peter quickly drove towards the storm. He raced ahead to intercept it, and immediately activated drilling anchors to hold the vehicle down. The wind speed had reached nearly 300 kilometers per hour, yet Peter's team still risked intercepting the storm, hoping to capture the eye of the storm. Driven by both passion and the lucrative reward, the storm grew even stronger, destroying everything in its path. But the tornado was unpredictable. It came right in front of them, and then suddenly changed direction, leaving the group in shock. It turned out the tornado was heading towards the school. Realizing the danger, Vice Principal Gary quickly evacuated the students. But then a tree suddenly flew in, crashing inside. They were horrified, seeing the gigantic tornado approaching. Everyone panicked and fled in fear. Allison led the students to the hall, and instructed them to crouch down and hold tight. The tornado swept through shortly after. It was so strong that it ripped the roof off. In an instant, some unlucky people were swept away by the storm. Fortunately, the tornado quickly passed, without causing much loss of life. Gary worried for his son, and told him not to go outside, because the storm was coming there. But before Gary could finish, the phone cut off. Donnie didn't have time to understand what was happening. At that moment, the storm came and blew the roof off immediately. Donnie and his friend barely had time to react, before being buried in debris. At the same time, Gary was shocked by what he saw outside. Everything had turned into rubble and ruin. But this was only the beginning, because another superstorm had just formed, and was heading toward the city. Peter was excited and urged the team to chase it. Very quickly, the group reached the site of the new tornado, but it quickly disappeared. Anna knew with this weather, it wouldn't just vanish like that. Sure enough, as she predicted, a tornado 10 times stronger than before appeared, immediately demonstrating its immense destruction. A whole row of solid buildings was blown away in seconds. Gary, driving to find his youngest son, arrived just as Donnie did. They didn't have time to react, before the car was flung off the road by the winds. Left with no choice, the father and son ran into a nearby bank. But Gary, running last, was blocked by a falling car. At the entrance, Anna was also blown out of the armored vehicle, but Gary rushed in time to save her. Yet the storm didn't want to let them go. But despite its force, it couldn't lift them away, so it vanished soon after. But now the father and son's only vehicle was destroyed. Anna convinced Peter to let them ride along, but Peter turned to Donnie's son, telling him to film as much as possible, and he'd pay him $3,000 afterwards. Trey agreed right away. Meanwhile, Donnie's group narrowly survived, but now the pipeline started to burst. Water gushed towards them, as Peter's group was on their way there. But the rain and lightning grew heavier, signaling that the storm was gaining strength. Sure enough, a massive funnel formed soon after. But that wasn't all. 3 more tornadoes appeared at the same time. Despite years of storm chasing, it was the first time they'd seen so many tornadoes at once. Not only that, their destructive power was incredible. Meanwhile, 2 reckless vloggers, still obsessed with recording, dreamed of becoming internet idols. But the tornado came through, and gave them a one-way ticket out. Meanwhile, the truck carrying Anna and Gary was struck by the tornado, causing it to lose control, and get blown off the road. Not only that, the tornado also destroyed a tanker truck, spilling fuel everywhere. Coincidentally, a power line fell down. The fire spread rapidly with the storm's impact, burning even stronger. Peter quickly turned the car around to rescue Anna's group. Another tornado was heading towards them. As the group ran towards the nearby church, a tornado suddenly sucked up the flames. One team member, mesmerized by the sight, stopped to film it, unaware of the danger. Soon after, the tornado grew stronger and sucked away his camera. He tried to retrieve it, but that action caused him to be caught in a fire tornado, and so, one team member was consumed by the flames. Seeing this, Anna wanted to rush out to help, but Gary pulled her into the church for safety. Finally, the storm passed, but they had lost a colleague forever. Yet Peter only cared about the footage, which made Anna furious. Seeing this, the black man tried to calm things down, and urged Anna and Gary to go save his son. Meanwhile, the water kept rising, putting Donnie and his friend in danger. Luckily, at the critical moment, his phone caught a signal. Donnie explained the situation, and sent an SOS to his father. Fortunately, by then, Gary received his son's message, and rushed to the location. But when they arrived, They heard nothing from Donnie. Anna remembered that the place was flooding. With that clue, they quickly found Donnie's location. But a large metal beam blocked the way. They couldn't move it. In desperation, they rammed the beam out of the way with the car. But another piece of metal fell on Donnie's leg, trapping him. After rescuing his friend, Gary rushed to save his son. But after being submerged for so long, Donnie wasn't breathing. Gary performed CPR to save him. And thankfully, through his father's love and effort, Donnie was brought back to life. Just then, Peter arrived to retrieve the hard drive with the footage. But who knew? Another storm was forming here. For safety, everyone got into Peter's armored vehicle. This time, 2 tornadoes formed, but their size stretched for miles. And just then, the two merged into one, creating a superstorm, with winds reaching 500 kilometers per hour. This is definitely the highest rated tornado, and the largest they have ever seen in their lifetime. And Silverton High School is directly in its path. Gary suddenly remembered that the alarm system was broken, so the students wouldn't know what's coming. So he rushed back to the school to evacuate everyone. The students were quickly put on school buses. They needed to leave as soon as possible, because the storm was almost there. Just a few minutes after the buses left, the super tornado crushed the school completely. But after a short drive, a power line fell across the road. In desperation, they had no choice but to turn around and take a detour. But the storm moved too fast. Now they could only seek safety. Donnie remembered a nearby storm drain, so he led everyone there quickly. But the entrance was blocked by a large metal plate. They had to pry open the manhole cover to get in. Luckily, they got inside safely. Just before the giant tornado could sweep everything away, the storm moved towards the airport ahead. Massive planes were lifted like dust, easily sucked into the terrifying storm. A truck was sucked into the eye of the storm. After being tossed around, it suddenly dropped right by the drain, damaging the barrier in front. The metal cover on top also flew off. Seeing this situation, if the tornado passed over them, no one would survive. Peter decided to sacrifice himself, driving the car to block the metal plate. He gave the tape to Anna, asking her to finish the job for him. The tornado was approaching their location. Though he was hit by debris, Peter managed to get into the car. The suction under the drain pulled a man away. Anna was also thrown out from the group. Luckily, in time, Peter drove the car to block the plate, saving Anna just in time. Then Peter quickly anchored the car to the ground. But the wind speed had exceeded 500 kilometers per hour, so they hooked the cable to the truck on the other side of the drain, hoping the storm would pass. Peter had been waiting for this moment his entire life. So he stood up, secured his seatbelt and started filming. He could feel death approaching. But just then the storm suddenly went silent. Just when they thought they had escaped death, Peter said, they were in the eye of the storm. This terrified everyone, because worse was yet to come. The tornado intensified tenfold. Peter's armored vehicle was shaking violently. Finally, it couldn't hold any longer, and was lifted straight into the sky. The wind was incredibly strong, causing everyone in the drain to tumble. Gary was being sucked up through the manhole cover. Everyone else clung on for dear life. As for Peter inside, his vehicle was lifted high by the tornado. 1 second, he was in the storm. The next, he was soaring through the clouds, seeing the most beautiful light of his life. But then the storm brought Peter back to reality. His car fell uncontrollably, and he never returned. Luckily, the storm eventually dissipated. Everyone in the drain survived. This storm was recorded as the strongest in history, turning everything it touched into rubble and ruin. But after the storm, the sun shines again. They vowed to move forward, to recover and rebuild what was lost. Anna completed the documentary, as Peter had wished. And by now, the two vloggers also survived. And so the movie ends here. Support us with a like, goodbye, and see you next time.